So tonight I'm hopping on a flight back to my hometown, Phoenix, Arizona, but before I go, I have a few hours, so I thought I would play a quick session here at TCH Dallas. I'm either going to play the 1-2 or the 2-5, whatever opens up first because I don't have a ton of time. So anyway, let's get in there, let's get some good hands for the vlog, and hopefully book a nice profit before I head out to Phoenix tonight. See you guys inside.
Alright, let's get some fun hands in before I have to leave to my flight to Phoenix. Right as I walked in, there was a seat open in the 1-2 500 max buy-in, so that's what we're gonna jump in. And one of the very first hands I get involved with, there's a limp in early position, and I look down at ace-6 of diamonds on the button. Having position here and a suited ace is definitely going to be good enough to put in a raise at this 1-2 table, so I raised to $12. The big blind comes along as well as the original limper, so we are going 3 ways to a flop of queen 9-9 rainbow. They check it over to me, and I think this hand can go either way. We're going to be called by a lot of draws, like hands like jack 10, possibly king jack, 10-8, etc., and of course some backdoor flush draws and pairs. I think if I'm going to bet this flop, I need to have a plan for the turn in the river. At the time I decided on the aggressive route and bet $15. Only the big blind calls, so now we're headed to a turn card, which is the 4 of spades. Now when the big blind checks, he's going to have some queen x combinations that are going to continue, but I think I can go either way between betting about half pot and putting a check in. So I decided to check and evaluate rivers, as sometimes ace high can be good here. The river is the 10 of spades. This card is a terrible card because it does bring in the flush, and it's going to pair up some of his hands that have draws, like for example jack 10. He leads for $35. I don't think this is a good hand to turn into a bluff at this point. We're not blocking enough hands, so for those reasons, I decided to put in the fold, and we'll move on to the next one. In this hand, we're a bit short-handed. This table is very dead. There's no action going on at this table whatsoever. So I'm going to start opening up my opening range, and I look down at 4-3 of spades in early position. It's nice to have some lower suited connectors raising under the gun. That way you can't be capped on certain board textures that come out. This hand, however, is probably a little too weak to be opening, but at this particular table, I think it was totally fine. So I raised to $10 and only the cutoff calls. The flop is king jack 3 rainbow. And at the time I checked, planning on possibly check raising and getting a bit creative. However, my opponent checks behind, so we head to a turn, which is a jack. Now it's very likely I have the best hand, plus if I bet for value here, I can sometimes get better hands to fold, as well as deny equity to my opponent pairing up on the river, so I bet $10. He folds, and this table is very dead. In this hand, a lady raises under the gun to $10. It folds all the way around to me in the big blind, and I look down at queen 8 of clubs. Definitely gonna peel here against this player, so we go heads up to a flop of 9-8 deuce with 2 diamonds. I check it over to her, and she checks very quickly behind, so when she checks here, I think she's gonna have a lot of overcards that miss this flop. I even think a lot of her ace-x of diamonds type hands or king-x of diamonds type hands starts betting. The turn is a 7 of diamonds, so it does bring in the flush. I have second pair, probably have the best hand at this point, and I think I can bet for value as well as deny equity from overcards, which is most likely what my opponent has. So in this case, of course we have a made hand having second pair, which is probably good, but if we didn't have a made hand, let's say we had king high or queen high, we can start repping a lot of what's on this board, as it's way more likely that we have a strong nutted hand versus my opponent, and that's what's called range advantage. So on this board texture, I think this board heavily favors us versus what I would assume my opponent is raising with under the gun. She's going to have a pretty tight raising range, so she's not going to have hands like 9-8 suited, 7-8 suited raising under the gun, most likely. However, I could be wrong, but that's just my educated guess. So all that to say, we can definitely start bluffing on this texture, but in this case, we are going to be betting for value and denial. So I put out a bet of $15, and my opponent folds very quickly, so we take down another pot. In this hand, one of the more skilled players at the table raises the hijack to $15. I look down at king 10 of hearts in the cutoff, super sweet spot to put in a 3-bet. I make it 45. Then the lady on the button decides to flat my 3-bet, so now my plans are not going so well. The original raiser calls, so now we're going 3 ways to a flop in this 3-bet pot. The flop is 10-6-5 with 1 heart, so we flop a pretty great hand. The original raiser checks, and now it's on me. I do have to worry slightly about the lady to my left, however, I think she's going to have a lot of hands like pocket 9s, possibly jacks, but most likely a hand like ace king or ace queen that she doesn't really want to fold, but she's not going to turn into a 4-bet. It's very unlikely she has pocket 10s because I hold a 10 in my hand, so I think my hand wants to bet for value, and again, in multi-way spots, you don't need to bet big, so I put out a bet of $40. They both call, so now we're headed to a turn card, which is the deuce of diamonds, a pretty big brick. The original raiser checks, and now I check. Since I'm out of position, I don't want to continue bloating this pot, so let's check and hope to get to a river and then evaluate from there. Luckily, the button does check behind, so now it's very unlikely she has a strong hand. The river is the king of clubs, so now we improve to top 2 pair. They check it over to me, and now, obviously, we're going to go for value, and I choose the size of $135. The original raiser thinks and thinks. He's in the tank for quite a while before finally sliding in the call. I flip over my hand, he gives the table tap, mucks his cards, and I take down a super nice pot, and the lady to my left did say she did indeed have ace queen of hearts. In this hand, I'm in middle position and look down at ace jack offsuit. I raise it up to $10. The button and the big blind, two of the most loose passive players at the table who were calling pretty much anything pre-flop, make the call. So now we're going 3 ways to a flop of 7-7-9 rainbow. The big blind checks it over to me, and now with ace high on this board, when my opponents are calling so loose pre-flop, they are going to have so many misses and air on this type of board texture. Back when I first started playing 1-2, I was only concerned with the strength of my hand, but we have to think about my opponents and how wide they're calling pre-flop, so therefore how wide they will be showing up post-flop. Not only is ace high probably good here a ton of the time, betting here will also be for value a lot of the time. So I put in a very small bet of $10, and my opponents tossed their cards into the muck and couldn't have folded fast enough.
I'm going to be playing in the Madness Cup put on by Advanced Poker Training starting on March 1st, and the best part is you can come play too. It's fast, free, and easy to sign up. And there's going to be cash prizes, and there's a chance you'll be able to play against me. Sign up and come and see why the Madness Cup is the most new, exciting poker tournament format out there. Click the link above or below to get started, and I hope to play against you in the Madness Cup.
In this hand, I raise to $10, and then the gentleman who plays pretty loose pre-flop, he then 3-bets me to $35. Whenever loose passive players all of a sudden show aggression, you should proceed with caution. If I was suited, I would definitely consider putting in a 4-bet, but being out of position with this offsuit hand, I decide to flat, and so we're going heads up to a flop of ace 4-3 rainbow. On this ace high board, I don't think I'm ever going to lead into my opponent who 3-bet me pre-flop, so I check. He puts out a bet of $45, and we want to keep ranges wide, and also if my opponent is somehow bluffing with a hand like king queen, etc., we want him to continue bluffing, so I put in the call and we head to a turn card. The turn is the 8 of spades, bringing in a spade flush draw. I do not have a spade in my hand, so again, for the same reasons on the flop, we are also going to check the turn to my opponent. But this time, my opponent decides to slow down and check. The river is the 5 of spades, so now the backdoor flush does come in, and again, we do not have spades. If I had the ace or king of spades in this spot, I would definitely consider putting in a smallish type bet, but because we don't have spades, I think we can lean more towards a check and hope that my opponent either has a bluff or worse value, so I check it over to him, he checks back, I flip over my hand, and we win this nice pot and a 3-bet spot. So after that pot, things are going pretty great. I'm in for 500 and currently have a stack of $851. In this hand, there's a couple limps in early position, and I look down at 2 red 10s on the button. I raise it up to $15. The small blind and the limpers call, so we are going 4 ways to a flop of 5-7-8 rainbow. They check it over to me. We definitely want to bet on this board for protection. I think this is a spot that we might want to size up a little bit. However, I think my sizing is a little bit too small here as I bet $20. Only one player calls, and then the turn is the ace of hearts. He checks it over to me, and this is where I think I make the mistake in the hand. My opponent isn't going to have a lot of ace-x combinations. For example, it's not like he's going to float a hand like ace-3 offsuit on the flop, possibly would do it with a hand like ace-10 or ace-9. However, he probably just has a lot of hands like 7-6, 8-9, and some 5x combinations. So just because the ace comes, I shouldn't have slowed down. I should have continued trying to charge all of his pair plus straight draw hands, or just a lot of his pairs that will continue calling bets, but I did decide to check, and I don't like this play at all. The river is the deuce of clubs, a total brick. He checks again, and now, since we didn't bet the turn, our hand is likely the best hand. We want to go for some value and get called by some type of pair, so I bet $25. He folds pretty quickly and we take down the pot, but it's important to note that players are going to call turn bets way more often than river bets, because on the turn they still have outs to improve. So I don't like the way I played that hand, but I'm going to learn from this one and play this spot better the next time around. Alright, this hand was the last hand of the night and the biggest pot of the night. In this hand, an under the gun player who was definitely a recreational player, he makes it $10 to go. He had been playing very, very tight. The whole table calls, and I look down at pocket threes in the cutoff. I definitely think I have the implied odds to flop a set and win a monster pot, so I make the call. We go 7 ways to a flop of 5, 6, 3 rainbow, and I flop bottom set. We all check it over to the original raiser, who then bets $25. It folds to me and I raise to $75. In this hand, we are about $450 effective. My opponent makes the call, and so we head to a turn card, which is a beautiful sight to see. It is the 5 of diamonds, so now we have upgraded to a full house. He checks it over to me, and I put out a bet of $125. I'm trying to make my bet sizes enough to where we'll be able to shove for a nice size on the river, because we're most likely up against a hand like aces or kings, and my opponent is probably not folding. Right after I bet the $125, my opponent snap raises to $250, only leaving himself a little bit over $100 behind. As soon as he raised to $250, I assumed we were getting it in, so I said, I'm all in. And then he tanks. He goes into the tank and doesn't want to call off for his remaining $100. The whole table's sitting there thinking the exact same thing I am, as you can't fold now, buddy. He thinks and thinks, and then finally puts in his remaining chips. I show him my pocket threes for my full house, and he mucks, but he did show his neighbor, and his neighbor said he did indeed have pocket aces. So we scoop an absolute monster pot in this quick airport session, and now I'm ready to rack up and take my really nice profit over to Phoenix.
Time's up.
Alright, we pretty much got the exact result we wanted. In for 500, out for 13, for a profit of $800, and now I get to go enjoy my week with my friends and family, and of course, play some poker. So I will see you guys at Lone Butte for some 1-2 or 1-3 cash games. So next week's vlog will probably be one from Lone Butte, as I'll probably be playing the 1-3 game, which I've heard has been very juicy there.
If you've been following the vlog for a while and know me, you guys know that I love to try good food and drink spots, and so today I want to share with you a little adventure I went on in downtown Dallas. I decided to check out Times 10 Cellars. It's a food and wine spot where you get to try a lot of their wine flights, and in my case, I got the red wine flight. I love a good red wine. Of course, you can't just stop with red wine, you gotta go for the charcuterie board. Another one of my favorite things in life is cheese, crackers, marinated artichoke hearts, and so much more. It was absolutely delicious. This spot had a very nice vibe, it was super low-key, and I really enjoyed my time sipping on some wine and enjoying the snacks. If you live in the Dallas area, I highly recommend checking out this spot if you like to try wine flights. I'm still getting used to the area, so if you guys have some food or drink recommendations in the Dallas area, please comment below. I would love to hear them. Alright, I'll see you guys next week.
Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the vlog, would you do me a huge favor and go all in and like, comment, and subscribe? It would mean the world to me. We are just getting started. It's only up from here. I'll see you guys next time.